we be concerned? And what can the government do to stop inflation without costing jobs? Here to discuss that, the president of the National Taxpayers Union, Brandon Arnold. Brandon, good to see you again.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So, all right, you just heard my litany of problems. What do you think?
Well, first of all, can the government help it? Let's hope they don't. When they try to help, they almost always do the wrong thing. We saw that repeatedly over the past couple of years. The American Rescue Plan Act, which didn't rescue anything, in fact, drove up inflation higher. The Inflation Reduction Act, which we have promises of lower inflation that may come from that bill years and years down the road that I don't think will ever materialize. So let's hit the brakes on government responses by and large. That thankfully has been the case for the first few months of this Congress, thanks to the Republicans taking control of the House, taking away the full Democratic control in Washington. That has hit the brakes on these big pieces of legislation. And thankfully, I think that is one of the reasons why the economy is starting to get in slightly better shape.
Well, maybe. But look, for the average consumer, they can say inflation 6%, but you've been out there. You've seen what things cost. Just this week, we see the price of gasoline where I am up 40 cents the last 7 or 10 days. I mean, you just see this. The price of milk, eggs, bread, whatever it is, just the stuff to get people by, to put food on the table, to get to work. It's tough for a lot of folks, right?
Oh, no doubt about it. Inflation is still far too high, and the cost of living is increasing, not decreasing. Thankfully, we are starting to see a little bit of improvement there, but it's going to take a long time before things get back to normal. We're hopeful that at best inflation gets back to about 4% by the end of this year. I think that's even a little bit optimistic. And of course, as you said, the job market is beginning to cool. That's good news on the inflation side, but it's bad news for a lot of working Americans who are going to lose their jobs or be unable to find jobs, move up to better jobs. So I do think there's a lot of cause for concern. And the other thing we didn't really mention here, I think, is the credit crunch. Because of this bank fallout that we had, which fortunately wasn't as big as it could have been, I think it's going to be tougher and tougher for working class Americans, especially those Americans who don't have perfect credit records, of going out there and purchasing a house in an affordable manner or buying a car, even things like that. The availability of credit is going to decline along with these higher interest rates that are caused by the Fed. That's bad news for working class
Americans. You touched on something important there, Brandon, and I want to focus on that, and that is cars and houses. We are at the highest default rate, so repos on cars, used cars, higher than it's been in a very long time. That's problematic, obviously. I don't know what the default rate is on mortgages at this point, but if cars are here now, it's not too far of a stretch to think that people are going to start failing on mortgages too, is it?
No, not at all. And we have credit card balances. Credit card debt in this country is at an all-time high. That's a product, of course, of inflation. In order for people to make their average day-to-day purchases, they've had to leverage those credit cards, max out those credit cards. That's an enormous problem, exacerbated, of course, by the Fed raising interest rates. If you're carrying huge balances from month to month on an adjustable rate situation, as those rates go up, that's taking a bigger bite out of your paycheck, or you're just tallying up more debt. So that is the biggest concern I have about the economy going forward. The fact that people are leveraged to the hilt, their credit cards are maxed out. What happens when they can't make these credit card payments? What happens when they can't pay their mortgage or their student loans or their other obligations? We're going to see major economic fallout potentially.
Yeah, what happens if they lose a job? What happens if the car breaks down? What happens if the furnace blows up? I mean, that stuff happens every day, right? I mean, that's just normal life. And there's no safety net for these folks. And listen, I'm going to think a lot of these folks, made choices on their own to put themselves into this position. But yet here we are. And if that bubble breaks, well, if the dam breaks, you know how that is. We just get washed away, right?
Yeah, that's right. I'm sure there are some bad decisions that go into this, but a lot of it, again, is just trying to keep up with inflation. Some people are just living their normal lives that they were living before the pandemic, but everything all of a sudden got extraordinarily expensive. Their utility bills skyrocketed. The price of food at the grocery store skyrocketed. It's not that they were necessarily taking these lavish trips to Europe or the Bahamas or whatever. They were just trying to do what they were doing back in 2019 when the economy was much better. Things got more expensive. They put more and more money on their credit cards. And now they're hanging on by a thread. Like you said, they're one blown furnace or one loss of a job away from really being in a horrible economic situation. That's bad news. That's really concerning. It's one of the reasons why I think the Fed needs to take their foot off the accelerator pedal. They've already done so a little bit by making that last rate hike only 25 basis points when they were doing 50 and 75 in the past. But I think they really need to pull back on these interest rate increases because working class Americans are the ones that are potentially going to be hurt in a big, big way.
Well, there's no question about it. And the solution from Joe Biden and his team, we need to raise taxes on these corporations. That always comes back to the consumers as well. You'll pay your fair share. Well, the fair share gets spread out among the people that can least afford it almost every single time. Whether there's an increase in gas or grocery prices or pay your fair share, that always gets spread out to the middle class, the lower middle class, the people that are working, and they get punished in all of it. Brandon, I'll give you the last word.
Yeah, I think you're totally right. I barely even touched on the gas price issue, and that is an enormous threat to inflation, to, again, working Americans. Those people that are filling up their BMWs with premium gas, they're going to be okay. The people that are filling up their Fords and Chevys with regular gas to get to their work, to get to their place of business, I think are really going to be hurt by this price shock that we're seeing from OPEC restricting some production. It's another reason why the Republican plan in the House of Representatives to increase domestic production, to have more security when it comes to our energy supply. It's really, really critical. Hopefully, we can come to some sort of bipartisan agreement on that. But unfortunately, there's not a whole lot of room for optimism there.
Well, I'm going to be an optimist anyway on a Good Friday, Brandon. Things look pretty bleak on Good Friday. And in 3 days, good things can happen. Brandon Arnold?
I like it.
Happy Easter.
Same to you. Thank you.
All right.